Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Cynthia. Just have a minute to go. A little bit less than a minute. You stare at the time and you think it's stuck. Good evening and welcome to the September 27th regular council meeting. It is due to COVID-19 and recommendations by Waterloo Region Public Health to exercise social distancing and public gathering thresholds that township council meetings are currently being held electronically. Members of the public have been provided with the following methods to watch or participate in this evening's electronic meeting. Watch the live stream by accessing the meeting at the township's YouTube page. Members of the public who are interested in attending as an observer or wishing to speak to any item listed under item 7, items for discussion, were asked to submit the request in writing to the clerk's division before 7 p.m. on September 26th. A link and telephone number has been provided to those who registered before the registration deadline. In accordance with the township procedural bylaws, members of the public are not able to speak verbally to all items on the regular council agenda. Members of the public may only verbally speak to the items listed under item 7 exclusively, but were able to submit their comments in writing for all other items. Members of the public who have submitted comments have been provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I would now like to call this meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda, please.
So moved by Councillor Rolleman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that council adopt the September 27th, 2021 regular council agenda as presented with the following addendums. 1, add item 8.1.1D, memorandum from Andrew McNeely, Chief Administrative Officer, regarding requested edits, revisions to the recommendations from Development Services Committee, and memorandum from Ashley Sage Clark regarding requested edits, revisions to the recommendation. 2, add item 8.1.1E, memorandum from Andrew McNeely, Chief Administrative Officer, regarding requested edits, revisions to the recommendations from Development Services Committee. 3, add item 9.4, report number CLK-16-2021, noise bylaw exemption, construction activity on September 30th, 2021, and that all correspondence circulated to council in advance of this meeting and made publicly available on the township's website will form part of the public record for this meeting of council. Councillor Rolleman?
In favor.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. I would now like to read the Indigenous territorial acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people of Canada. We will now pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. I'd now like to ask if there is any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. And I myself do have a declaration on items PD report number 51-2021, 88 Gibson Street. My son-in-law's company is contracted by Reed Heritage Homes. So at that time, Margaret McCreary will take the chair. Councillor Rolleman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a conflict with item 13.1. That's Councillor Ossner's report on internet on Mellor Drive, and I've submitted a written form to the clerk as well.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other declarations, we will move on with the delegation from Mary Jane Patterson, Executive Director of REAP Green Solutions, regarding their annual impact report. Is Mary Jane here tonight?
Yes.
Here I am.
Good evening, Mary Jane. How are you?
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And I believe I'm sharing the screen, so stand by. How's that look?
Awesome.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Chair and Mayor Foxton and councilors, staff, and all the viewers on the screen too. I'm very happy to be here to share our impact over the past fiscal year, which for REAP ended in March 2021. So it was really the first year of COVID that coincided directly with it. As you know, REAP's mandate is practical action in the community. And our work now is guided by this 10-year goal that we adopted last year to support 10,000 meaningful actions by our participants and moving towards a resilient and low carbon future. In the first fiscal year of this mandate, we made it almost 1/10 of the way during a pandemic. So that didn't seem too bad. And we have more than twice as many supportive actions. And to give you an idea of the difference, a supportive action would be attending a workshop about tree maintenance and tree planting. And meaningful action would be planting a tree, because that actually makes change in the community. And let's take a look at those meaningful actions that we were able to support in our community. Close to 3,000 plants sold through the Bloom in Box series, which is in the spring and has 3 different types of plants for shade, rain, or sun. And they are all pollinators and native species. Over 100 trees planted and almost 100 shrubs sold. Lots of good plants getting in the soil to strengthen the soil and help stormwater to filter down into the earth. And we had strong demand for these, even with COVID and maybe because of COVID. As you know, we also support homeowners in managing rainwater on their property and conserving our water resources. And I'll speak to the water efficiency first. During the past year, we've been working with the region of Waterloo, actually for several years, to deliver home water reviews to let people know how efficient the fixtures are in their home. During that time, we had the opportunity to install measures right on the spot. And we were able to install 216 of these. Those are meaningful actions because they make change right away when they happen. And I took a look at our records. 13 homes last year were in North Dumfries that had water reviews. And we installed 8 different measures on the spot that began saving water right away. We also work on stormwater management and flood prevention, and we supported 12 rain gardens going in the ground this past fiscal year. One of the most important milestones for our whole community this past year was launching Transform WR, our long-term strategy for climate action in Waterloo Region, which was endorsed by this council in the spring, along with all of our other municipal councils. The plan calls for us to transform the ways we move, build, and operate our spaces, the ways we produce, consume, the ways that we relate to each other. Home energy evaluations are one example of the ways we can help fulfill the goals and the strategies within Transform WR. And this is the work that we do in supporting homeowners and making their homes more energy efficient. There were 175 energy efficiency upgrades during that fiscal year based on our recommendations to the homeowners. And we've been seeing some interest now since the Greener Homes launch, which happened during a lockdown. and created a bit of a backlog. But we have a thriving waiting list right now as we crew up at REAP to meet that demand. And I took a look, and there's at least one person from North Dumfries on that list, as well as a number of others from the townships in general. So we're working our way through it, and really pleased to have this renewed interest and federal support that we've been calling on for a long time for home energy upgrades. Last year was the end of a 2-year project called Project Neutral, and this was an online platform. It still is, it's still available. We just don't currently have specific funding for this for the community, but we had over 2,000 over the whole 2-year period, and 846 during this past fiscal year who logged on to find out what their household carbon footprint was and what they could do about it. Not all of those people wanted to continue the conversation with us. Sometimes they just carry on, but some responded when we asked them, what did you do as a result of that? And 111 actions were reported as a result of people interacting with the online tool. We noticed during this time, we had 17 people from North Dumfries participating. So we were very glad to see that. And we had dozens of events, community events and workshops all over Waterloo Region to help people use the tool. And speaking of events, we managed to have 2 physically distanced in-person workshops and then a whole bunch of other ones online during this past year. It was very interesting to see the increased capacity for people to participate when we went online. We had people from as far, from the United States even participating. So that was surprising. And lots of attendees, as you can see on the screen. As an environmental charity, we invite donations from the community to help support this kind of work, and received $24,000 last year in donations that were really helpful to doing things like these workshops that often are not directly funded in any other way. Oh, good heavens, I don't have my jar here. All right, you're going to have to picture a mason jar in my hand, which I've been taking with me to all the council meetings. This is the Zero Waste Challenge. We're about to start it. October 1st is the beginning of the 30-day challenge, and October 16th is the beginning of the 7-day challenge. And the goal here is to use a mason jar for all of the waste that you can't compost or recycle. And that shows you what's going to go to landfill. So it can be a real challenge to say, can I get through this day without anything going in that jar? And I think what it really shows us is that packaging is a big part of waste reduction, and we got to kind of back up. Yes, Mayor
Mary
Foxton.
Jean, yes, you know that I'm taking the challenge.
I know, I'm so excited.
I'm opening it up to all my council members if they'd like to take the challenge. Mary Jane, do you provide the mason jar, or can I get my own?
We don't normally, but for you, I'll make a special delivery if you need one.
Oh, I don't, so I can get my own?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And of course, it can be whatever size you want. It's
Thank
not,
you.
you're not going to be monitored. There's no penalties at the end. It's about having fun with this, seeing what you learn, and posting it on social media. And it's really fun if you post a picture of yourself with your jar anywhere along the process. And thank you. Thank you so much for participating. Yes, I really felt that regional councillors kind of laid down the gauntlet for other councillors.
And my councillors can step up too. Anyone who just want to join, Mary Jane's happy to take you.
That would be wonderful. We, I did a 30-day challenge last year, and I really learned from it. And I'm going to do it again. I'm starting on Friday, October 1st. So welcome to anybody who wants to participate. What else? Oh yes, next slide. I just got excited about the Zero Waste Challenge. Here's our expenses at a glance. And what I really think this pie chart tells us is the diversity of programs that you're helping to support through Mayor Foxton, through your participation on regional council and the funding we receive from the region. And I think there's kind of a good balance between climate change adaptation, helping us all adapt to increased stormwater and the changing environment that we are in, and mitigation, helping us reduce greenhouse gas emissions so that we can try to limit the impacts of climate change. Looking ahead, we have 3 programs that we're excited about. One is the Tree Trust. This is where we will provide professional arborist care for mature trees, so we can keep them going, sequestering carbon, anchoring the soil, shading us, all of those beautiful features that mature trees provide. And that's funded through donations. On the right, you see our program to overcome the barriers to home energy upgrades. That's a design that we are doing this year with all of our municipalities at the table. We'd love to have North Dumfries there too. We are creating a program to help people overcome the barriers for home energy upgrades. And that will include having loans from other sources, either on bill financing, municipal financing in some way. We're kind of getting a lot of feedback from everybody around the table to see what would be the right solution for Waterloo Region. And finally, Project Neutral has moved into a new phase in high schools, and it's called Kids Cutting Carbon, encouraging kids to take the tool home and see about their own household emissions. We can't resist updating this bar chart because since the end of our fiscal year, from April 1st onward, we have surpassed 10% and we're close to 15% towards our goal. And that is exciting. So finally, I would like to end with a very big thank you. Mayor Foxton, you're part of the regional council that provides core funding to REAP Green Solutions. And we have been very happy to have North Dumfries around the table for climate action and our Transform WR work. We want to say a special thank you to Andrew McNeely and Michelle Poisson for being part of this, and to all the North Dumfries staff that have participated. Together, we are helping people live sustainably. That is all. I think I should stop sharing. Oh,
Yes,
I
please.
see how to do that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mary Jane. Councillors, do you have any questions or comments? Anyone want to commit to the challenge now?
Mhm.
No pressure. Okay, thank you, Mary Jane. It was a wonderful presentation. Well done. You've done a
My
great
pleasure.
job.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Now we're going to go into committee of the whole, but CEO McNeely, I declared a conflict on 88 Gibson Street. I did not declare the conflict on the Northumberland Street. Correct? So I can still partake in Kyle Bittman.
So, Madam Mayor, the 170 and 180 Northumberland are totally unrelated to 88 Gibson. 88
'cause-
Gibson's its own application with a different landowner.
Okay, because in my minutes here. Okay, so I leave after Kyle Bittman. All right, thank you. So
Yeah, so first motion, Mayor Foxton, was to approve as presented items A, B, C, F, G, and H, and then have
Yes.
item D and E pulled out.
okay, because I've got A to B, A, B, C, yep, F, and H. Okay, let's pass Mary Jane's first, please.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that the delegation from Mary Jane Patterson, Executive Director with REAP Green Solutions, be received. Councillor Rowland,
In favor.
Councillor Osner,
In favor.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
In favor.
That carries.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to go to the motion that will receive 8A, B, C, F, and H. Correct?
Yes, and G, G and H.
And- Oh, F and F, G, H. Okay.
Yes. So that's moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Osner that council adopt the following recommendations as presented, as listed on the agenda. And that was items A, B, C, F, G, and H as presented. Councillor Roman,
Yes, in favor.
Councillor Osner,
Just a question with G and H, does that not, is that G and H, is that in relation to Northumberland Street?
No.
It's 88.
G is the closing of the holiday season, the holiday hours, and H is the cargo trailer bringing.
Sorry,
unit
sorry,
information.
I'm finding this really hard to follow here. So where are we on 8?
We're
Committee of
not,
the Whole?
we're on committee of the whole,
Okay,
and it is items A, which is the $3,000, the
Skate
skateboard
parks.
park.
okay,
B is
auditors,
bylaw for external auditors,
okay,
correct?
all right,
C is yet to be received, it says. And F is Todd Brown representing Monteith Brown with thanks for the report for the leisure service master plan. G is the township offices holiday seasons. And H is the acceptance of the cargo trailer from for ownership to the township.
okay. All right, was there an updated agenda that was sent out?
So no, it was revised with the addendums that were issued. So there were the addendums which were the memos.
Okay, so why did we not get a new agenda that has all of those in there? Because when we're working on separate, like I'm looking right now on my tablet and I'm looking on my iPad of the agenda. Then I've got to flip over to another device to find all these different addendums. Was there no way to give us an agenda that had all these addendums in? So that we only look in one place, or?
Yes, certainly I can send an updated agenda.
I
Agenda out then.
certainly wouldn't want to be saying okay and pass something that I can't even see on my screen.
And Councilor Austin, you make sense. If the problem being is that addendums that come in very, very late. For instance, the final addendum for correspondence was just before the meeting tonight. But
And that's the problem when we're working electronically, because like I said, I've got my own iPad here for the agenda. I've got my tablet that I'm using for the Zoom meeting. And, now I need a third device to catch up with all these addendums. It's very frustrating sometimes.
well, actually, and if they actually had updated the whole package with the addendums in it, but just stated this is the only thing that was added, then you would have the complete package. So what I do, regional council does the same thing. And what I do is just before the meeting, I look at several addendums because they do the same thing. And then I delete the previous one so I don't get confused. And then just before the meeting, I see if there's any more additional addendums. And if there is, they tell me to the side what the addendum is, then it's inserted into the package and I get rid of all the past meeting ones, past agendas. But anyways, going on to the vote, carry on, Ms. Sage.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCrory,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. And I believe now we are having Kyle Bittman. Is that correct, Ms. Sage?
So yes, he is in attendance if council has questions or to
Oh, I
offer
thought he was going
clarification.
to speak. Is it just
Oh,
for
yes.
questions of clarification? Okay, CEO McNeil, do you want to introduce Kyle Bittman and what he's basically, what we can ask him or what he's here for?
So, Madam Mayor, Kyle Bittman is representing Air Meadows Development Incorporated. They are the present owners of 170 and 180 Northumberland, as well as the balance of the lands to the east of the apartment buildings, where the future 82 townhouse units would be developed in the future. Some site servicing has occurred in support of those future townhouses. No construction has occurred yet with the townhouses. Mr. Bittman is here to answer any questions that council may have. I did issue a request from the region of Waterloo earlier this morning to members of council, and Mr. Bittman was copied on it. The region has asked that any actions on 170 and 180 Northumberland, that being the two 4-story apartment buildings, be deferred to a later meeting. The region is doing an internal review and will be supplying further information to both the owner as well as the township on the two proposed condominium applications affecting both 170 and 180 Northumberland.
CEO McNeely, when can we have the discussion on the situation of the condo versus apartments? When would that fall into play?
So we are waiting now for that follow-up internal review from the region. And I'm hopeful that the region will have that information available to us by the end of the week. And if they do, then it would appear on the October 12th Development Services Committee agenda, and there would be an updated report outlining whatever information is received from the region of Waterloo pending their internal review.
CEO McNeely, what if the council wants to have the discussion tonight?
Council may have a discussion tonight. There is the recommendation from the Development Services Committee from the earlier meeting in September. There may be some new information from the region that may have a bearing on the nature of those condominium applications. And that's why the region has asked that the item be deferred to allow them to furnish that information to the municipality, as it may provide new context and or information related to the two proposed condominium applications affecting 170 and 180 Northumberland. The
So-
region's commentary is focused on the two apartment buildings, not the 82 townhouse development.
So CEO McNeely, what we have here in front of us in item D is the condo revision and recommendations from the Development Services Committee in regards to the actual condo regulations rules, right? Is that correct?
So item D in the circulated agenda actually has three separate components. There's D1, D2, and D3. 1 and 2 in item D relate to 170 and 180 Northumberland respectively. Item 3 in that section deals with the third condominium application, which is specifically the 82 townhouse units, which have yet to be built.
All right, so are these just for information? Are these, are you asking us to pass these?
Madam Mayor, there was a recommendation coming out of Development Services Committee earlier in the month of September. There has been new information brought to light. The region, as recently as this morning, has asked that council defer making a decision on what was discussed at the September 13th meeting and await their submission of further information as it may assist the public and members of council on the two condominium applications dealing with 170 and 180 Northumberland.
Okay, and so to be very, very clear, item D, dealing with the apartments building as well as the 88 townhouses, the region has asked to defer for further information. So we would be deferring this, is that what you're saying?
So the region has asked that 2 of the 3 items be deferred. So that would be the 170 Northumberland and the 180 Northumberland. Each of those 2 proposals relates specifically to the existing 4-story apartment style buildings. The region does not have any concerns with council entertaining making a decision as it relates to the proposed common element condominium application, which deals with the 82 townhouses. So that would be application 30 CDM 21301, which deals specifically with the 82 townhouses.
Okay, so
That, if council wished to, could deal with the recommendation arising from Development Service Committee. But the other 2 proposed condominiums, the region has asked that a decision be deferred pending the receipt of that further information.
okay, so 6.1.1D, which is the resolution involving condominium C prepared by Van Herten Surveying, dated April 8th, project number 27375-19, 150 Northumberland Street. The development consists of 82 townhouses. That one, are you saying is okay to go ahead?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have not received any correspondence from any member of the public related to the townhouse proposed condominium. The region, and I believe Mr. Bittman, are satisfied with the draft recommendations that came out of Development Services Committee related to the proposed 82 townhouses. And if council so inclined, council could endorse that aspect of the Development Services recommendation.
Okay, and this has nothing to do with the apartment buildings, or I want to just be very clear for everyone, nothing to do with the apartment buildings or the revision to condos. So do we have any questions, councilors, on just the townhouses? Councillor Gillespie's first, then Councillor McCreary, then Councillor Oster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wondered, are these rental units or condominiums? And it's so confusing using condominiums for rental units. I have no clue why you're doing that. There's got to be another word that can go in there, because condominiums, everyone thinks you own them, but then I saw an email today that said they weren't changing those into condominium units. They were leaving them as rentals. So I am just really confused in the wording of this whole exercise. And I think that's been a problem for everybody.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Gillespie, as it relates specifically to the 82 townhouse units, which is its own separate condominium application, those future townhouse units, each unit will be freehold title. The common element, in other words, the condominium portion, deals with the open space network, the stormwater management pond, the trail systems, the underground services, water and sewer, etc., that services each of those townhouse units. So this development, being the 82 townhouses specifically, is very, very similar to what council dealt with 3.5, 4 years ago at 50 Butte Street. So the townhouse units are freehold ownership, access through common lands that are managed through a condominium corporation, that being the road, the services, the open space areas.
Is that clear, Councillor Gillespie? So what it says is that I could buy a townhouse and I will pay a condo fee, and that condo fee will cover the snow plowing of my parking lot. That condo fee will cover, stormwater management, things like that. This is totally different than changing apartments to condos. Totally a different thing, okay?
That's true. But didn't I read somewhere that those townhouses were supposed to be some rentals as well? Or was that, I'd
No,
misunderstood?
the exchange of emails over the last 3 or 4 days focus exclusively on the proposed condominium at 170 and 180 Northumberland, which is the 4-story units. So those 2 units are built. The 62 units made up in both of those buildings are leased out as rental units. That is separate than the 82 townhouses, which we're focusing on right now.
Okay, that's fine. And then that's why I questioned it last on the 13th as well, because this is just very confusing, this whole thing. And I don't believe you can, it's a good idea to change it from a rental unit, the apartments, rentals, to a condominium. That is just not.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that when that's the time. Okay, Councillor McCreary, please.
Talk about being confused. I'm confused about what question I can even ask right now. Are we asking questions about 170 and 180 right now?
We're
No.
only asking about the units, the townhouses that have not been built yet.
Okay, I don't have any questions about those.
Okay, so we'll get to the other later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ossner.
I just wanted to ensure that that we're just focusing. I just want to reiterate that we're just focusing on the townhomes, because we have a lot of discussion to move forward with 170 and 180. And while Mr. Bittman's here, I want to make sure that we're crystal clear on all of that, because I don't want any more misunderstandings.
Yeah, and that's in your agenda package, and the resolution's right here too. And it is specifically as only the townhouses.
Okay.
Councillor Rollerman.
Madam Mayor, I have 2 questions. The first question is with regards to the access to these townhouses, the 82 units, the shared driveway. Currently, that driveway is being used by those rental apartments that we're not allowed to discuss. So how is that incorporated? If those remain rental units, let's say, how would that driveway be accessed? Is there an agreement then with the owner of the rental unit building and the future condominium corporation for the 82 units? Or how are we handling that in the short term while we are figuring out the condo for 170? And the second part of the question is, usually I notice when we have these sort of meetings, there's a giant sign that says, application for condominium or application for subdivision, like over here on the corner of Greenfield Road and Northumberland. I don't see any signs on this property. So I'm curious, why is there no public notification, no signs? Maybe I have the wrong meeting. Maybe that's committee of adjustment I'm thinking of, but I'm just curious why we're being accused of not being transparent to the public. And I'm wondering, is it because of the lack of signage indicating what's going on in this property? So those are two questions.
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rowland, as it relates specifically to the first element, the access corridors interior from Northumberland Street to the 82 townhouses, those will be owned by that condominium corporation associated with the townhouse unit. There will be a master agreement, for lack of a better term, that will be laid over top, affecting all of the parcels, the two apartment blocks, the future commercial block, which is right by the rail corridor, as well as the condominium corporation for the 82 townhouse development, allowing for those access through those parties over those pieces of land, specifically focusing on access. And that is done through a master servicing agreement that's then registered on title. So it goes with the title of the land. And therefore, any future transfers that might occur, it continues with the property title, not the individual or not the corporation. As it relates specifically to notice of public meeting or the posting of signage on the property frontage, you are quite correct. Under most Planning Act applications, where we have public meetings, there's two forms of notice typically given by the municipality. One is basically a notice by first-class mail to all abutting landowners within 120 meters of the subject land. And the second is a property signboard at the road frontages of the parcel in question. As it relates specifically to the draft plan of condominium for the parcels in question, there was no property notice, signboard, nor was there any mail out within 120 meters of the subject lands. And that ties back to the region being the approval authority and having deemed these not necessary for a public meeting under the Planning Act. So they were relying heavily on the original approvals going back in time. So that would have been initially the official plan amendment, rezoning, and then subsequently the site plan. So that is why there was no notice or signage based on the determination from the region as the approval authority, resting on some of those historic consultations and meetings back in time. So this is some of the information that will be shared, I believe, coming out of that internal review that the region's undertaking right now, in addition to some other matters.
Any other questions, councilors? Councilor McCreary.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton. I think I can ask this question. So you're saying that the region decided that these properties, I guess probably all three of them, have been discussed enough in the past that it wasn't necessary to put up the signboard, even though the idea of 170 and 180 being condominiums had never been presented to the public or to council before.
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor McCreary, there is a provision in the Condominium Act that if the nature of the built form is substantially the same that was part of earlier Planning Act applications, then the approval authority can advance forward without formal statutory public meetings.
Okay, so I guess then the steps that were carried out were in accordance with the Planning Act, but it certainly didn't give the public the notice that they thought that they deserved or needed, although procedures were followed to the letter.
And that's what's going to be part of that follow-up documentation from the region, in addition to some other matters about affordability. Where do these units fall within the, I'll call it the CMHC affordability index for the Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo Census Metropolitan Area, which we are part of. And all of that information would be back in that future report once we receive it from the region, and then would be in a staff report back to Township Council. And because we now have, and I'm guessing, 20 or so pieces of correspondence, those people are now part of the public record. And so if this report comes back to a future meeting of Development Services and or Township Council, whether it be later this month or into the month of November, they would be notified of those return dates of that report.
Okay, that's good. And I'm sure that, I guess speaking for myself, I can't speak for all of council, but I think I certainly would have wished that region would have decided to have a public notice anyway, even though they were not required to under the application of the planning regulations and laws. It would have been nice if they'd done it anyway, but that's water under the bridge.
Thank you, Councilor McCreary. I see no other questions. So if we're prepared, Ms. Sage, you do not have to read it in its entirety, except to reference it as the townhouses, please.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Ossner. Draft plan of condominium C 30 CDM-21301, prepared by Van Harten Surveying Incorporated, dated April 8th, 2021, project number 27375-19. 150 Northumberland Street. The development consists of 82 townhouses, a total of 43 visitor parking spaces, will be distributed throughout the site with an internal road network, water, sanitary and storm services, common area, landscape features and amenities, and a stormwater management plan, a management pond, sorry. And the remaining is as presented in the staff report. Councillor Rollman?
In favor.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
That carries.
And now I will step away and Councilor McCreary will take the chair for the Reed Heritage one. The 88 Gibson Street, please. So Cynthia, you have to put me in Siberia.
You actually have to leave. If I remove you, you won't be able to use the same link.
Okay, so I have to leave and then you'll let me come back, you promise?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, 8.1.1E, is another plan of condominium, but this one is for 88 Gibson Street. And the original recommendation was passed at the Committee of the Whole. However, as an addendum to the agenda, there have been some revisions to what was originally passed or recommended, and those have been provided to us. So does council have any questions or comments about the revisions that were made to what we originally passed? Seeing none, Ashley, can we have the motion to pass 8.1.1E? And you don't need to read it in its entirety.
Perfect. So that is moved by Councillor Rollman and seconded by Councillor Ossner that PD report number 51-2021 be received, and that is as presented in the circulated memorandum. Councillor Rollman?
In favor.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor McCreary?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Okay, so that now ends my duty as deputy mayor.
We'll get Mayor Foxton back in.
Is Mr. Bittman coming back for the 170 and 180 discussion, or is he gone?
He appears to have left.
That's too bad, because all the questions that could have been directed at him had nothing to do with the townhouses. That had everything to do with 170 and 180. However,
Well, we are going to talk about 170 and 180 again, I guess, when it comes back from the region. Would he be attending council at that point so we could ask him questions? Would he be invited to council?
Madam Mayor, through you to Councilor McCreary, yes. It would likely be at Development Services Committee for that return report because of the new information provided by the region. And it would also allow a forum for any of those individuals that have provided emails to council to actually speak to members of council in a committee setting.
So
Okay.
we have not addressed the deferral yet, though, correct?
correct.
Ms. Sage, what page are we on in the agenda? Because there's so many pages that I can't seem to. Of the 19-page agenda, which page are we on?
So the next item on the agenda was 8.2, which are the minutes.
Okay, so. All right, so page 14, okay, there we go. Councillor Austin.
When are we dealing with 170 and 180 Northumberland? Is this going to be later in somewhere in the agenda here, or?
When we get to, we have neither passed nor deferred that item yet. CO McNeil, where would that be?
Where's this coming?
So I'm going to direct my question to Ms. Sage. Ms. Sage, at the commencement of the meeting, when council dealt with the changes to the agenda, there was the memorandum that talked about seeking the deferral of the report of the recommendations from Development Services related to 170 and 180 Northumberland. Was that part of that resolution that council adopted at the outset of the meeting when they adopted the modified agenda?
That would be correct. That deferral was adopted, yes, at that time.
So it was included in 8.1.1.
So council did adopt.
We did not want to defer.
We
wanted to
specifically
discuss
asked,
it.
that it had to do with nothing but the townhouses. We have not voted on this deferral. We have not discussed the deferral. And that motion, we were very clear that had nothing to do with 170 and 180 and everything to do with the townhouses.
That's correct. Now, the one I signed was only the townhouse. It did not talk of the deferral at all.
Sorry, that's not what I asked, Ms. Sage. At the very, very beginning of the meeting, when we called the meeting to order, what was in that resolution?
CO McNeely, it doesn't state it. It states add to item 8.1.1D memorandum from Andrew McNeely, Chief Administrative Officer, regarding the request, edit, revisions, and recommendations from the Development Services Committee. And then the second one was add to item 8.1.1E memorandum from Andrew McNeely, Chief Administrative Officer, regarding requested edits, revisions, and recommendations from the Development Services Committee. So it didn't tell us which, so I bet it was E that we passed.
So what it was, so the memorandum that Ms. Sage issued this morning, following my discussions with the region, was not included at the outset of the agenda. So to Councillor Ostner's point, no actions have been taken yet as it relates to 170 or 180 Northumberland Street. Council needs to have something, a disposition with respect to 170 and 180 Northumberland.
And my original question is, when are we dealing with this? Because now we're down to 8.2 in the
No,
minutes.
we'll deal with it now, Councillor Ossner. Ms. Sage, can you confirm for me 8.1.1E? That was the truck for the region that was given to the fire department, the trailer, correct? So therefore, at this point, I would like to inject the discussion in regards to the apartment building
H was
condominiums on
trailer.
Northumberland Street.
Mayor Foxton, H was the trailer.
Okay, so what was E? I thought I read them out. None of them said that. Regardless, I'd like to note for the minutes.
E had to deal with 88 Gibson Street.
Okay, good. Okay. And I
Okay,
declare comment then. So
Right.
we have not dealt with it yet. So correct?
F says that the property will be, I think F was 180 Northumberland.
I thought I read out F. I thought I read them out.
no, E deals with the 39 unit multi-residential building located at 88 Gibson Street. F has to deal with the presentation from Todd Brown at Monteith Brown related to the leisure master services plan. G has to deal with the closure of the township municipal offices over the Christmas holidays.
Yep.
And H dealt with the acquisition of the 2004 enclosed cargo trailer for the fire department.
So we have not dealt with it yet.
You have
And it
not
is-
dealt with, in one fashion or another, related to 170 and 180 Northumberland Street, which is the two 4-story style apartment buildings.
Nor do they exist in the rest of the agenda. So I would like to put them in now. Or would you prefer them to come into after 9.4?
So right now, they are part of item E, items 1 and 2. So council now has to make a decision. The region has asked that the items be deferred. So council can do several things. Council can defer the item pending further information received from the region with a future report back to Township Council. Council can make a decision if they wish. Council can approve the motion as presented from the Development Services Committee of September the 13th.
So now I'm going to open the floor. Councilors, this is your discussion. Councilor Ossner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So first and foremost, I kind of, this has left a real bad taste in my mouth, finding out the way that this company has dealt with the tenants. And you've all read the emails. It's just appalling to me that a staff report comes to us with no considerations, not even in the report saying that we do not know if the tenants have been contacted. We do not know if they have any idea that this is turning into condominium. Nowhere in the report did it say, like it said today, where they said, oh, you know, there must be a misunderstanding because we have no intentions of selling these units. We just want to call it a condo now. When I asked the question at the 13th meeting about, is there a tax advantage, savings, difference, whatever, C.L. McNeely had said, no, there's no difference. So why do they want to change it to a condo? They're upsetting all their tenants. And this just, it simply does not seem like it's the right thing to do. So I think that the tenants not being notified, I still don't know why they want to call this a condo. This just can't move forward, and I'm not comfortable. Like, I would prefer, in my opinion, and like, again, it's up to council. I don't want to wait till the region tells us this is okay, and then it's redundant. We don't need to vote on it because the region says it's okay, or the region might strike it down. But if the region says it's okay, then we have no opinion. I would rather this move forward to the region with an opinion of this council. And I believe I know my opinion is this should be denied. We have a lot of information in the past week that we didn't have when the staff report came. It seemed easy peasy at the time, but then all this information comes out and like, this is just wrong. This should not happen. I feel sorry for all these people because they haven't even been in there for a year, and now they're changing it to a condo, and I still have no idea why they're doing it. But I think we need to send a message as council. If council agrees, we need to send a message to the region that we do not support this. And then when this is all over and done with, I want to raise a motion that if any other apartment buildings are built in North Dumfries, that a minimum of 10 years, they must stay as rental units. We have no rental units in North Dumfries, and all our young people are moving out of town unless they're millionaires. So we need these rental units. These people have moved from other places across Canada, United States, wherever, the region, and now they're going to be displaced. They feel like they're going to be displaced. And I can't argue with them that they're not going to be displaced because I don't know. They say, oh, well, we want to call it a condo just because we want to call it a condo, and nothing's going to change. There's got to be a reason why they want to call it a condo, and not just because they have other properties called condos. There's got to be a reason why. And I don't think this is in the best interest of the people that we represent. And I'm hoping that as council, as I said, we can send a message to the region that we do not support this, and let the region do what they may, but they know that this council hopefully does not support this motion. I feel completely different about this than I did on September 13th.
Councillor Ossner, are you proposing a motion?
Yes,
And the motion will be?
to deny the
The transfer of apartments to condominiums?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
To negate the motion from Committee of Adjustment, strike down the motion to Committee Adjustment to move forward with it.
We do not have to strike down Committee of Adjustments because they're a suggestion to us. We are doing this. So your motion to deny the change from apartments to condominiums. Do I have a seconder for that motion before I go on to further questions, and then we'll go on to further comments? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gillespie seconds. Thank you very much. Councillor Gillespie, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I totally agree that, you know, if this was built as a rental apartment building, and it should stay that way, I think I would support that motion. And I hope some of them are, you know, rental apartments that people can afford, affordable housing. That's what we need as well in Ayr and in the township, I'm sure.
Thank you, Councillor Gillespie. Councillor Rollman.
Madam Mayor, perhaps the CEO can clarify, but just because you're changing the title of ownership doesn't necessarily mean that they won't be rental apartments. The owner of the building can change it from a multi-residential building to individual condominiums, but they can still continue to have to own those individual condominiums privately and have them rented out. Maybe over time, they might start releasing a few of those for sale, but I seem to think that the owner isn't planning on necessarily selling all these condominiums right away. So that's the first thing we need to clarify. The second thing is the whole issue of affordability. The region did not do that study. And what people have said to us basically is that because Air is primarily a place where people own their houses, that these apartments are affordable in the sense that I can't get enough money together to get a down payment and make the monthly payments. Therefore, my only option is to rent this apartment, even though the rent apparently is $2,000 a month, which seems very high. But compare that to a mortgage, it's affordable for some people. So my question, I guess, with that is the region only looking at the market rents for comparable units in Kitchener and Waterloo, as opposed to looking at what's available in Air? We all know that there's nothing available in Air except to get a mortgage and make a mortgage payment. If you compare a rental apartment to a mortgage and a mortgage payment, suddenly it's a lot more affordable. So I want to know what I know what their definition of affordable is going to be. It's going to be looking at, 30% below market rate. But can they not also look at the rubric of a mortgage versus a rental in a town or a village where there's zero vacancy for rental? Is that not a factor in the whole issue of the 3% vacancy, which we have 0% vacancy? So I just want to make sure that the region is going to look at this. I'm hoping the region will look at this in a more fair way.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rollman. So that's some of the information that's supposed to be part of that internal review, and that's pending submission from regional staff. I mean, I've got the information for the Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo Census Metropolitan Area that was published in January of 2021. That's the most recent document that I'm able to access. Obviously, it's heavily influenced by the three cities because that's where the majority of housing stock is. So it's set, it's given a fairly good snapshot of the three cities. But to your point, elements of it may not be relevant in the context of smaller centers like in Elmira, Baden, or in our case, Air. The region may have other information that's companion to what's published by CMHC that would be relevant to this discussion. So the long and short, no, I don't know that answer. I can only give it to you in the context of the published document from CMHC, which is biased toward the three cities for obvious reasons. But that would need to be part of that discussion and that future reporting from the region. Now, as it relates to ownership of the units, you are correct. Changing the status to each unit having its own legal description through the condominium process does not directly remove the premise of rental. Those existing leases would have to be honored by a future owner if, in the event, one or more of those units was to be sold to a third party. And they are protected under the newly created Residential Tenancies Act. So they're treated just as if they were in a true rental apartment setting. The condominiumization does not alter those obligations under the Residential Tenancies Act.
Councillor McCreary.
A question for CAO McNeely through the mayor. I guess what I'm hearing is that the region makes the final decision on this. So the application initially went to the region. The region referred it to the township, but just because we were entitled to make comments. But the region, they've now admitted to us, I guess, that the report that they gave us was not adequate and that we were not properly informed. So they're going to come back to us then with a complete report and a better report. So do I have that correct?
So substantially, yes. So the region is the approval authority. So they receive the applications from Air Meadows Development, Inc. to establish condominiums. And I'm going to focus specifically at 170 and 180 Northumberland Street. The region circulated that proposal to the township as well as other relevant government or agencies for comments. So what we received was the application, as well as the survey put forward by the Ontario Land Surveyor, which gave the description of the condominium corporation. So based on that information, we brought forward the implementation aspects related to a condominium that we could not deal with through the site plan process. So they're more performance related measurements, okay? Because site plan is a physical element. We put the implementation aspects that would form a future condominium declaration, which would govern then the proceedings of how to establish the condominium corporation and what their role would be as it relates to a variety of municipal services or potential municipal services on their property. That is what was presented to council based on the information provided to us from the region. I did on Friday, as we started to receive comments from members of the public, I did reach out to regional staff, asking them for their analysis. And I received a follow-up this morning, and they've asked for the deferral as they internally gather that information so that they can provide that kind of information back to Township Council through a future report.
Thank you for that. I would like to see council wait for this report to come back to us. And when that report does come back, I would like to have Kyle Bittman come back to council so that we could ask him questions and that we could get this whole thing cleared up, determine exactly what the procedures are and the impact that it's going to have on the tenants. I don't know that I want at this point to wholesale reject the whole thing. I would just like to see it be done according to the procedures, but have it done thoroughly and have the building's owner here and have the concerns of the public addressed at a council meeting.
Councillor Osner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. CO McNeely, so if we take that path and the region wants us to defer our decision, it goes to the region and it's going to come back, let's say at the October 12th meeting. Where do we go from there? Like, is the region going to come to us? Hypothetically, the region's going to come to us and say, we have reviewed this application and the region has no problem with it?
No, the region
will
will
bring the information forward to us before they make a decision. We get to make a decision?
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Osner, no, the region will not tell you how to make your decision. The region is going to provide some more information related to the roles. I'll call them the rent rolls. We don't know what the terms of those leases were. We've never seen a copy of the lease. There may have been language in the lease that actually spoke about the future potential for the condominium. So the region has asked the owner to supply the rental rolls, which would confirm how many units are actually rented out of the 62 in question, what their rent rates are, what's included within the rent rate, and language related to those lease opportunities. They would then look at that in the context of their own data and that of the CMHC as it relates to availability of rental accommodations, accommodation types, because we do have rental units, but they're not in traditional apartment style buildings. They're second dwellings in residences. They're similar to that. But they would look at the different types of rental accommodations in the township. How many are rent geared to income? How many are market? What is the vacancy rate? How do these units fit within that mix? And they would also provide information related to whether or not in the long term, in the leases of these individuals, what was described and what added protection was built into those leases for those residents if the building was to be turned into a condominium. All of that information would then be contained in a future report to the committee, Development Services Committee, and Development Services Committee, on the fullness of that information, would then determine what an appropriate framework of a decision would be as to whether or not there's merits in entertaining a conversion to a condominium as it relates to 170 and 180 Northumberland. If committee at that time does not believe it's appropriate based on the fullness of that information, then that would be the recommendation from the committee to Township Council. Township Council then would make a decision, and that would be forwarded to the region as part of their receipt of comments from third parties on the proposed plan of condominium for the two addresses at 170 and 180 Northumberland.
So at no time, like if we were to defer this tonight, it goes to the region. The region is not going to come back with a decision. They're going to come back to request comments, and then we can make our decision before the region makes theirs.
That is the commitment the region has given to me in an email this morning, which I then transpose into a memorandum to council this morning asking that the item be deferred because the region wanted more time to provide information back to Township Council.
Okay, because my concern, I'll just finish quickly. My concern was letting this go to the region, and the region comes back, so we've reviewed the whole application and we have approved it. And at that point, there's no sense having a development services meeting or approve anything in council because the region has superseded us. So it will not go that way. It will be come back to us for information. We'll look at it. We make a decision, and then we send our comments to the region.
That's correct.
Okay. And one last question. When it does go to the region, if there was a petition by all the tenants, et cetera, and that could be submitted as part of the package to the region?
Yes, it can.
Okay.
And the region is aware of the 20 some odd comments because I have passed those along as council has received comments. We have packaged that up and sent it also to the region. So they're abundantly aware of the 20 some odd emails that Township Council has received. So has the regional planner.
Okay. And at what point, I'm sorry, I will finish, I promise. At what point can we get an answer? Can an email be sent to Mr. Bittman tomorrow asking him exactly why they want this classified a condo versus an apartment?
I can ask Mr. Bittman to speak to that item when I'll say the return report comes back before Township Council.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for indulging me.
Councillor Rowland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I guess the question is then with the motion on the floor, is there value in having that motion or a motion similar to that go to the region, or will the region just dismiss it out of the hand anyway? Because we really don't have it's not really our purview, I guess. Or are we better off to say that we are going to reject the application with the information as provided because we feel that it's incomplete? Is that the exact same thing as deferring it? So I'm just kind of wondering about what's the best way to move forward here. Do we withdraw the motion, or do we, how do we move on?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to interject now, council, if it's all right, because you've all spoken twice. I am going to not support the condominiums, and I'll tell you why. Sure, they can sell them and have them rented, but every time they change ownership, that new owner has the right to affect the rent and end up justifying it. It leaves the renter at the hands of ambiguous people that they do not know, that are at arm's length. We need rental units. We cannot guarantee if we pass this as condos that it will remain rental units. It may not. We have the opportunity now to say, we need rental units in North Dumfries. These have to remain rental. They're doing the condominium type thing with the townhouses. There's other condo types in our village. We do not have clear-cut rental units. We need clear-cut rental units. They sold out so fast. I had a family member wanting to rent, and we called within a day that the sign went up, and they were gone. That tells you the demand. If we turn it into condos, again, it leaves it ambiguous. It means one person can buy it, and then that, as if the lease runs out, the person doesn't know if they can re-establish their lease because if it's been bought again, is it going to be at a different price? It leaves the renter up in there. I think we need solid rental units. I am going to support Councillor Ostner's motion unless he withdraws it. And then as chair, I cannot make a motion, but I want rental units in North Dumfries. I believe Councillor McCreary, you were next.
Thank you, Mayor Foxon. I mean, I agree that I think we need more rental units, but I really want to get that information out of the region so that we all understand what's happened here. And yes, we can reject or tell the region we don't want the conversion to take place. We could do that now, but we can wait until we have all the information and do it then, and do it when we're better informed as to all the implications of the condominium conversion, what all those implications are. So I don't think that the tenants right now aren't going to be evicted, even if it does turn into condominium. They will still be able to stay in their units. But I just feel that the information that we have got is too unclear. We do have the chance to get more information, to get a better explanation from the region and get Mr. Bittman back in here for discussion. So I would not be supporting the motion to immediately reject this condominium conversion. I would like to have a better report on it first.
And that's your right, Councillor McCreary. If I may respond, Councillor Williman, now to you. The region is not going and looking at the condominium. They are looking at affordable housing issue and whether it falls under affordable housing. It still leaves it ambiguous for the renters, and I would like it to be clear rental. Councillor Williman.
Mayor, no, I agree with what you were saying, that we definitely, need these to remain as rental units. My question, I guess, was more about the process, because you're a regional councillor. So I'm wondering, how will our motion be received at regional council? If we say, we agree with the motion on the table that, hey, we want this to remain as rental units, and we're going to put our foot down and say that this cannot change, is the region just going to overrule us and do what they want, or how? I'm just kind of wondering about the process, how that works.
I'm sorry for cutting you off. The region has talked constantly about affordable housing, about more rental apartments and the need for them. This is a weekly discussion at the regional council. It's constant. So what we're doing in preserving rental is imperative. And if we turn it to condo, we cannot guarantee those renters that whoever buys it will say, when your lease is up, I want your apartment. We can't do that. We can do it if we state they remain rentals. But I am pretty sure, and actually, if we go forward with this, or whichever way we go, I would like us to send a clear letter to the region stating the need to supply living quarters for the people in North Dumfries who cannot afford a mortgage, who have not the ability of to buy a house in our township. And I think we should be sending that letter along with whatever decision we make. And CEO McNeely, am I wrong? But the region was going to look at, if I read that email from the region correctly, whether it was classified as affordable housing or not. And I didn't think $2,000 a month or $2,300 a month classified as affordable housing.
So, Madam Mayor, based on, and I'm only looking at the January 2021 numbers from CMHC. No, these units, based on what we've seen in the email from the residents, if they're spending upwards of $2,000 a month on a rent, they're well above what CMHC has identified as affordable. So no, they would not fall within the affordable category as defined in the regional official plan. They may be affordable in the context, and this is going to Councillor Rollman and Ostner's earlier point versus buying a home in a real estate market in North Dumfries. So it's how you want to use the word affordable. But the way the regional official plan speaks to, it talks about context related to benchmarks like the CMHC affordability index for this census metropolitan area.
And that's what they're looking at, correct? The affordability of the part. That's
That will be a key component of the work that they would look at. They would also, if they've got better data, also advise as to what kinds of units we have that are in the rental spectrum and what their vacancy rates are. So there would be more information than just the affordability index as per utilizing data like the CMHC Census Metropolitan data for this area. There would be some other pieces.
So I see no more questions. Councillor Ostner, will your motion stand?
Yes.
Could you please read the motion, Ms. Sage, and then we'll have the vote.
So moved by Councillor Ostner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that council deny the transfer of apartments to condominiums.
So if I could just ask that as it relates to that, we add the two condominium file numbers so that there's no confusion as to which files we're speaking to. So this would be related to condominium file numbers, CDM 30 CDM 21302 and 30 CDM 21303 as it relates to 170 and 180 Northumberland Street.
Do you have it, Ms. Sage?
Yes, I do.
Can you read it, please?
So moved by Councillor Ostner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that council deny the transfer of apartments to condominiums as it relates to file 30 CDM-21303 and file 30 CDM-21302 as it relates to 170 and 180 Northumberland Street. So Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ostner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. Now we'll move on. We are on to the passing of the minutes. Does anyone have any questions about the minutes of July 12th, August 9th, or August 10th? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please, Ms. Sage?
So moved by Councillor Ostner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that council approve the following minutes. Council meeting minutes dated July 12th, 2021, council meeting minutes dated August 9th, 2021, and the special council meeting minutes dated August 10th, 2021. Councillor Rollman, sorry, Councillor Rollman.
Oh, can you hear me? Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Ostner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
So now we are on to correspondence received from Debbie Anderson regarding speeding on Roseville Road. And it's just asking that it be received. Is there any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Rollman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie that the correspondence received from Debbie Anderson regarding speeding in Roseville be received. Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ostner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
Next, councilors, we're on to the development agreement for 2 Hall Street, and I believe the applicants owners have registered to speak if there's any questions. Are there any questions? Cynthia, do you need to bring them in first?
Yes.
Are we good to go, Cynthia?
Yes.
Thank you. So councillors, is there any questions? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rowland that PD report number 56-2021 be received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute a development agreement between the Township of North Dumfries and Mary Hay Thu Beckett and Christine May Najuan to satisfy conditions imposed on provisional approval of consent file B-02-20 for 2 Hall Street, subject to any minor revisions as required by the Chief Administrative Officer, and that bylaw number 3276-21 being a bylaw to execute a development agreement between Mary Hay Thu Beckett and Christine May Najuan and the township pertaining to 2 Hall Street be enacted. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
That carries.
Next, we have 9.3, which is correspondence received from Ted Harvey regarding the Ontario truck parking studies. And we touched on this briefly at our last meetings and how all the rest stations along the sides of the roads have been gone. And now the trucks are not allowed to park in the service stations along the 400 highways or anywhere. But the systems on their trucks now mandate they have to stop for 8 hours and rest, but there is no place to rest. So the motion is basically asking, CEO McNeely, do you want to explain it better? You wrote it very well.
So, Madam Mayor, what the context? We have a large logistics industry in North Dumfries, and I think that this resolution is important to signal to an economic catalyst within our community that trucking is important. So the first part of the resolution just sets the context about how important trucking is as part of the overall transportation sector. And obviously a successful transportation industry supports economic growth, not only here in Ontario, but across Canada. We talk about those hours of service that Madam Mayor has just talked about and how those were put in place by the government of Ontario to ensure that we had drivers that were properly rested as they traveled the various corridors across Ontario. And as such, providing the appropriate space for trucks to safely pull over and have their rest breaks is not only part of our economic success, but it's also part of public health and safety. And so the resolution is seeking that the Minister of Transportation, the Honorable Carolyn Mulroney, to work with the Ontario Trucking Association to identify opportunities for strategic parking areas along the 400 series highways, as well as the long haul routes in central and northern Ontario. And then it will be copied, the resolution of council were to adopt it to the 5 MPPs in Waterloo Region and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, with the hope that this would gain some traction and there would be positive movement to deal with this chronic issue.
Thank you, CEO McNeely. Is there any questions, councillors? Seeing none, Ms. Sage, can I have the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Rowland, where it is recognized that the transportation sector and specifically the trucking industry represents a vital component in the context of both the Ontario and Canadian economy. And whereas the trucking industry moves over 70% of all freight in support of various commercial and industrial sectors, and whereas the implementation of in Ontario of hours of service and electronic logging device regulations which limit driving hours to ensure rest is now in effect, and whereas the implementation of the HOS elevates the need and demand for the provisions of appropriate truck parking and rest areas for long haul routes and aggravates the shortfall in the provisions of existing truck parking. And whereas the need for a reliable and stable truck industry is not only critical to the continued strength of the Ontario and Canadian economy, but also a matter of public safety on our highways. Therefore, the Council of the Township of the Corporation of the Township of North Dumfries resolves, 1, that the correspondence received from Ted Harvey regarding Ontario truck parking study be received. 2, and that Council seeks the engagement of the Minister of Transportation to work collaboratively with the Ontario Trucking Association to develop a proactive and encompassing strategy to ensure the appropriate provisions of dedicated truck parking spaces and rest areas along the 400 series highway network and long-haul routes across central and northern Ontario. 3, and that this resolution be circulated to the Honorable Caroline Mulrooney, Minister of Transportation, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the members of Provincial Parliament across Waterloo Region, and the Ontario Trucking Association. Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. Next, we have up the noise bylaw exemption for the September 30th. Does anyone have any questions about this? Seeing none, can I have the resolution, please?
Moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Rollman, that report CLK-16-2021 be received and that council grant an exemption to the noise bylaw number 2609-14 to conduct construction-related activities in the Township of North Dumfries during the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on September 30th, 2021. Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
Okay, next is correspondence, and there's lengthy correspondence. There's a few I'd like to highlight. Is there any that councillors would like to also highlight? Councillor Gillespie.
11.1.1 and then 11.1.5, which connects with that. 11.1.4, 11.1.6, there's a lot of them.
I think
11.1.8. Yeah, I guess that's it, eh? For correspondence.
let's start with yours first and see if they overlap with mine. Okay, so go ahead. Councillor Rollman first. Which ones did you have?
Are we going to look at 11.1.7, the recognition one? And also 11.1.2, the site plan control?
Okay, any others?
Pam took all mine, I think.
Let's start 11.1.1 for the optometrist ones. So Pam, that was yours?
Yes,
You want
yes,
us to
sorry.
endorse that? So as you know, the optometrists have not had a pay increase in God knows how long. So right now I was talking to my optometrist and it costs for an eye exam approximately $77. I believe they're paid 30 or 40 from the province. So they're actually losing money. They've asked that the province look at bringing up the rate. They're not allowed to go to your insurance. Like we're covered in insurance. So I could put it through my insurance. Not allowed to. The province doesn't allow it. They're not allowed to add an additional cost on. So if it's only, if it's got, the province is paying $30, they're not allowed to charge an additional $10 to offset some of their costs. It's not allowed because it's clearly run through OHIP. So they've been fighting this for some time. And so do we want to adapt that motion then, Councillor Gillespie?
Yes, I would like to, please, because I did get my appointment canceled because they're not doing any services right now.
You know what? I was talking to my optometrist and young children that have really bad eye problems and they've been canceled too. And then she tried to get them into a specialist, and the specialist, it's a year and a half out. And this is a young child with eye problems. So this is terrible. Is anybody in disagreement with sharing that with doing that motion as well? Ms. Sage, will you take care of that, please? 11.1.1, that North Dumfries will be. We can pull these and then CO McNeely, what are you going to say?
So Madam Mayor, if there's going to be an adopted resolution of council to support the city of Cambridge regarding the Association of Optometrists, then council needs to move that motion with a mover and seconder and a vote.
Okay, so can I have a mover, please? Councillor Gillespie. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Rowland. Can I have a vote, please? Ms. Sage.
Finally, so moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Rowland, that Township Council endorse the resolution from the City of Cambridge regarding the Ontario Associations of Optometrists. Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes,
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
And Councillor Rowland, it's 11.1.2. You and I had the same one. This is the prostate test. As you know, prostate cancer is a major problem with men. We get all kinds of tests as women. We get Pap tests, we get breast cancer screening and everything else. But a man has to pay a fee to get the prostate test, which is a little bit unfair. It's more than a little bit unfair. This is stating that the prostate blood test be incorporated into OHIP. So any other discussion? Can I have a mover and a seconder for that motion? Councillor Rowland, Councillor Rossner, thank you, boys. I was going to hope the men would step up. And can I have that motion read, please, Ms. Sage?
Certainly, so moved by Councillor Rowland, seconded by Councillor Rossner, that Township Council endorse the resolution from the Township of Huron Kinloss as it relates to prostate blood test. Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
yes,
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
Now, the next one is resolution received from Chatham Kent regarding affordable internet. Is there any questions on that? Or comments? Do we wish to endorse it? Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Gillespie is moving. Councillor McCreary is seconding. Very good, guys. Our rural ones, good for you. And can I have that read, please, Ms. Sage?
So moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that Township Council endorse the resolution from Chatham Kent as it relates to affordable internet. Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
yes,
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Next is the correspondence from Dr. Heather McMillan. And we've already endorsed the Cambridge motion for the optometrist, so I think that's covered there. 11.1.6, which is the Perth County regarding MPACT. Pam, you brought that forward, and what was,
well, I believe they're doing a total review of MPAC, how they do their processing, which I think really needs to happen. So I would make a motion that we support this.
you know, MPACT has deferred doing their assessments for, it's because of COVID, it's been pushed off. It was supposed to be done in, was it supposed to be done in 16, CO McNeil?
Oh, it has been increased several times.
That's right. So Councillor Gillespie is correct. There was and I apologize, I can't remember, it was a 4 or 5 year phase-in period.
Mhm.
And that's occurred. In 2020 was supposed to be the reassessment year. It was deferred. And I believe it's been deferred again for 21. And so I'm understanding that it is a project to be undertaken in 22. The concern's going to be is, look at the quantum increase that's occurred in a lot of communities as it relates to real estate valuations. So there's going to be some surprises when people go back and look at what their properties were worth in 2014, 2015 as assessment and what that meant. the phase in is going to be a critical component as we look at, I'll say a 22 value year and what that will look like.
I have to agree with you. It's going to be quite a shock because it's been quite a while since it's been done. And houses may have already doubled in cost in that time, doubled and now also almost tripled in that time period, which it will hugely impact. So if there's any further discussion, do I have a mover and seconder for the impact?
Well, I would move it.
Okay.
I'll second.
Councillor Ossner is going to second. And can you read that, please, Ms. Sage?
So moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Ossner, that Township Council endorse the resolution from Perth County as it relates to the relationship with MPAC. Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. Next, we have 11.1.7, Councillor Rowland, about the September 30th National Day of Truth and Reconciliation.
Yes, I was just looking at the correspondence from AMO. I'm just wondering, is there any action that we need to take in addition to what we've already decided to do, or is there a motion that should come out of this correspondence?
We passed that, the stuff that was going to happen.
Mhm.
Was that last committee meeting, was that? Go ahead,
So
Fiona.
So Madam Mayor, Council may recall it's at the September 13th meeting. Council endorsed a series of actions, some of which I'll say generally are reflected in the AMO package that was part of today's agenda. So we are flying the orange flag on September 30th through to October 4th, because we're dealing with two separate milestones, but they're intimately linked. That'll be at the NDCC for that time period. Council may have seen the package that I sent to township staff as part of our education kit to raise awareness amongst our staff members. And they're being encouraged through September 30th and anytime thereafter to review the materials that have been prepared through the organization to better educate, inform, and raise awareness of Indigenous related matters. So those are, and then of course we've just recently, and tonight you saw for the first time, the land acknowledgement is part of our standard agenda. So a lot of the things that are discussed in the AMO package, Council previously dealt with on September the 13th. There's nothing wrong with endorsing the AMO package, but largely it reflects the intent of what Council has done at an earlier meeting.
Okay. Anything else you wanted, Councillor Rowland? Also, September 30th is a big home game for the Sens. As I said, Tara will be dropping the puck, but also we're trying to get an Indigenous individual from Six Nations to come and be involved in that as well, to tie it in with the Day of Truth and Reconciliation. 1.1.8, the Year of the Garden 2022. Cam, you had that one as well, Councillor Gillespie?
Yes, I just wondered if we had talked to the North Dumfries Garden Club about this, because apparently it's like a worldwide celebration of horticulture in Canada. And I think it would be a great idea if maybe they know about it already, but if they don't, that could be part of their MOU requirements that we set up for them to help educate people and stuff like that. I know they did a great job with the downtown gardens this year, and the fall ones looked lovely. Unfortunately, I wasn't there to see them, but it looked lovely on the pictures. So I was just wondering about that. That's all.
Can we share that, Ms. Sage, with the, make sure that correspondence is sent to the garden club and see if they would like to be involved? And maybe they can get back on us and we can assist them in some way. I also had the letter from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing in regard to site plan control guides and how the policy is going to change. And what I'm frightened about this, and CO McNeely, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is that there may be some shortcuts in the Planning Act. That's what I'm afraid of, that shortcuts will happen and so that development can happen quicker. Am I incorrect, CO McNeely? And I would like to be incorrect.
So, Madam Mayor, what the minister established in his letter was basically he introduced a series of links to existing programs that have been adopted by some municipalities across Ontario as best practices, with the overall intent of trying to streamline the site plan control process. Minister believes that the planning process at times has too many delays in terms of processing, and as such, it's an artificial barrier to timely approvals, and that translates into higher either rental or purchase price for housing units. So he's not proposing any changes to the Planning Act at this time. He is just trying to inform and educate municipalities about what some partner municipalities are doing as a ways of streamlining the planning process.
Okay, so you don't see any impact with what we have?
No, there's nothing in there, as I said, that is changing current legislation.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else have anything else they want to bring forward from the correspondence? Seeing not, Ms. Sage, we can have the resolution that will pass the rest of them, or we'll pass the correspondence.
Moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Roman, that council receive the following items 11.1.1 through to 11.1.14 as presented. Councillor Roman,
Yes.
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCurry,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. Next up is Township Advisory Committees. 11.2.1 is the Heritage Advisory Committee. Has anybody got questions on that? Councilor Roman, I have one. Item 5.2, removal of 3205 Roseville Road. And I believe Mr. Benninger stated that it used to be the old schoolhouse. Did he say it was? So did you
Master's
remove it?
house.
What happened with that?
It was already removed at a previous time.
Oh, okay, so it's not designated. Okay, I just want to check.
There's
that.
no evidence of a Tremaine map.
Okay, thank you.
I think the Heritage Preservation Society has a Tremaine map of their own, I think.
Okay,
Not of Roseville or something.
okay, thank you. Then can I have the motion to receive those three the advisory committee minutes?
So
Oh, 1 minute, Councillor Gillespie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to ask one question on the Leisure and Lifestyle Committee. We've talked quite a bit about biking in Ontario and biking in Ayr and District. And there is, I think maybe Ms. Winter could confirm this. There's a group called Bike Ontario that will come to your community and see how bike friendly your community is. And then I was reading in the CAA book about another one, sharetheroad.ca. And I just wondered if we should look into something like that and have someone come and, if that's a possibility, to come and check out the Ayr District to see how compatible it is for biking. And because I guess there's a lot of bike tourism that could come into this township if we have good bike lanes. So I would just, I don't know, how do I make a recommendation that we?
Actually, you do.
Okay, so I would like to make a recommendation that we investigate biking in North Dumfries through Bike Ontario or sharetheroad.ca.
Can I suggest that you ask staff to look into it? That be your resolution?
Yes.
That's seek out. I know, I read the report and they talked about Northumberland Street. And the region tried like mad to figure out how to put a bike lanes there. There's just not enough road access. And there's not a lot of road access on a lot of our small street roads. But still it can be done. So yeah, I think it's a really good idea. Do I have a seconder for this for Councillor Gillespie's motion? Thank you,
second.
Councillor Osner. Okay, and the motion is, Pam, is to have staff look into approaching.
Yes,
These
either
roads?
Bike Ontario or sharetheroad.ca to see how compatible or what needs to be done to attract biking tourism to North Dumfries.
Thank you. Let me know when you have that, Miss Sage.
So I've got it. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor McCurry that council direct staff to investigate biking in North Dumfries by approaching Bike Ontario or sharetheroad.ca to attract biking tourism to the township. Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCurry,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes,
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
And now if we could have the motion to receive the advisory committee minutes.
So moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that council received for the purposes of information the following items. Heritage Advisory Committee minutes dated June 24th, 2021. Leisure and Lifestyle Advisory Committee minutes dated June 16th, 2021 and September 15th, 2021. And Planning and Sustainable Development Advisory Committee minutes dated June 10th, 2021. Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCurry,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
yes,
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. The next are external public agency minutes. CEO McNeely, the library committee, the library service review. I wonder if you can at some point update council on that. Doesn't have to be tonight. We have other things to discuss tonight, but maybe bring us up to date in the next council meeting.
So actually, Madam Mayor, there's an internal meeting with the regional staff this coming Wednesday. And it's our intent in November to bring reports to the 4 township councils through each of their CAOs.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to heads up that. Perfect. Thank you. So can I have the motion, please?
So moved by Councillor McCurry and seconded by Councillor Rollman that council receive for the purposes of information the following items. The Region of Waterloo minutes dated June 30th, 2021, July 22nd, 2021, and August 4th, 2021. Grand River Conservation Authority, the GRCA minutes dated June 25th, 2021. The Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee, GRAC, minutes dated June 24th, 2021, and the Library Committee minutes dated September 10th, 2021. Councillor Rollman,
In favor?
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCurry,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
yes,
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes.
That carries.
Okay, next we have a report from Councillor Osner regarding internet speed on Melior Drive. We have to pause now to let Councillor Rollman. Yes, Councillor Osner?
Sorry, before we move on to that, under other business, number 12,
Oh, I apologize. Other business, that's correct.
I have a couple items I'd like to bring up.
Okay,
Can we
the
go?
floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. So there was two items I have of concern in the downtown core. One I brought up before in regards to the pond, the weeds in the pond. Now, I believe it was Robert Shantz that said to me before the water came in, I asked if they were going to clear the weeds down before the water came up. And he said, no, when the water comes up, that they will basically drown and they'll dead. Well, they didn't. And now we have a downtown swamp. So I've had numerous people complain about it and say, you know, we used to have such a beautiful pond, and I agree 100%. So what can we do to either, I don't know if we can drain the water and get rid of the weeds, or do we wait until the winter kills it off and get the water back in there before the weeds have a chance to grow? I'm not sure. I would just like if that could be possibly looked at. That's my first issue.
Well, if we can finish with that one first. I'm gonna talk for CEO. Yeah, I talked to Chief Shantz also about this when they were there and the water was down, and he told me he would get to remove it. And of course, that didn't happen. So I'm in the same boat as you. I've had numerous complaints, and he says it's too mucky to get in there to remove them. CEO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, Chief Shantz had another meeting to attend to this evening, so I'm going to speak in his absence, if I may. What Robert has indicated is he proposes to let the water out of the pond earlier than normal, with the intent then to have the muck dry out a little bit, because it's so full of silt, it's water laden, and you would sink trying to walk across that surface to deal with the weeds. So the intent is to lower the pond early than we would normally do, allow the silt to dry, then staff will go out and effectively beat up the bushes and the weeds so that the crown of the weed is now exposed to the cold air and hopefully the frost, and then winter will set in. What didn't happen last year is the water was left in the pond too late, and by the time the water went out, we already had some ice and snow, and effectively created a insulating blanket over top of the weeds. And so they were not exposed to the same extent to the frost, and as such, they were not killed out by the cold weather, because the snow and the ice that was already on top of them acted like an insulating blanket. So that is the program. The other option is to secure permits or approvals through the Ministry of Natural Resources and potentially Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and actually dredge the pond. And that means there would have to be the analysis as to what does that look like? What is the impact on fishery resources? What is the window and time in which we could do that? And how are we going to dispose of the silt-laden material? And I do not know what the cost to undertake that analysis is, or the time to secure those approvals, but that's the other alternative pathway, would actually be go through a permitting process to then dredge the pond.
100 years ago, when I worked for the GRCA, that's exactly what we did, but we didn't ask anybody permission. Times have changed. Councillor Ossner, your other item.
The other quick one was, and this goes back after numerous months of me having nice conversations with young people down the Urban Plaza and asking them politely not to skateboard or ride their bikes or hang out at the cenotaph. I have been trying literally all summer to find, when I'm down there, to find a polite way. Same kids, I don't know if they're the same kids, you know, like they come and go, they're all, you know, together anyway. But that seems to be a problem. They all seem to like to hang out there with their skateboards, and I say, you know what, you know, this is not the place to be doing it. This is a memorial, not a skate park. We have a skate park. So I'm wondering if maybe staff could come up with a suggestion. I hate to lace the downtown with all kinds of signs to, you know, don't walk left, don't walk right, you know, walk up straight, walk hunched over, don't use your skateboard, don't use your bike, don't sit here too long. You know, I don't want a million signs, but there's got to be a way to get it through to these kids that is not the appropriate place to be skateboarding or riding your bikes.
CEO McNeely, did we put the bollards up with the chain? Because that was supposed to prevent it. Did we put them up? Yeah, because that was supposed to prevent that. We had these beautiful black bollards with black link chain that went around so they couldn't get up to it. It would interfere with their going up and down on their skateboards on it. So maybe if we get to that this spring. CO McNeely.
So no, those bollards that you're speaking of, Madam Mayor, they were not sandblasted and repainted or installed. What we did do is put, and I don't know what the right term is, rails on the concrete ledges to avoid the skateboarders grinding on, I guess, the retaining wall type features. But no, the bollards themselves on the 2 entrance approaches that are at grade, they have not been installed.
So wasn't that the thought that that would alleviate the problem?
The hope was that it would reduce it. Who knows? It might be where the skateboard goes underneath it and the kids jump over top of the chain.
Don't give them any ideas, CO McNeely. Don't give them any ideas. I can't see that, but yeah, so if we could attempt to get those up this summer, that would be great. We've got now a year to work on it, almost a year. Oh, here he's back. So Derek, those bollards were for that. They were for to help keep those skateboarders off as well. They didn't get installed, so we're going to work on that hopefully, so they'll be up next spring, summer.
Yeah, and is there any way maybe on those, maybe if the Heritage Society would like to suggest, maybe there's some sort of nice sign that fits in rather than having like that big yellow or lime green crossing sign that's up there. Maybe something that fits in just to remind them, no skateboards, no bikes, you know.
Or a sign that says we come here to pay our respects. So let's respect. the
Yeah,
parent.
but I think that's a message they're not going to get. I think a message they're going to get is no skateboards, no bikes. You know, and maybe it'll curb it down eventually. Maybe eventually it'd work. And I don't know if it's something that bylaw can keep an eye on, just to, you know, like just friendly little reminder, hey guys, you know, this isn't the place to be doing it. I mean, I do it anytime we're ordering out or ordering food or downtown for something. If I see the kids there, I just go over and have a nice friendly talk with them. And I said, you know, like just you know, if you wouldn't mind keeping in mind that what this cenotaph actually means. And I tell them, and no, we're not writing our skit. And then they're back there the next day. So that's it.
Thank you. Next up, Councillor Rollerman will leave now due to the conflict of interest in regards to the Councillor Ossner regarding internet speed. He got out fast. Good. Councillor Ossner, you're on board.
He's gone. Okay. So further to my my discussions previously, I was wondering if there's a way that we could add or consider a budget line for 2022. I've received a lot of emails, and usually it's from the same corporations, same companies, MCON being one. Numerous businesses on Mel Air Drive, and also on Greenfield, and also in the business park area. Internet is extremely poor. Businesses rely on internet and rely on reliable internet and quick enough internet. It's a problem all across air. Even on this side of town, that side of town, businesses are complaining about the internet. So basically what I was wondering is is there a way to come up, maybe staff, again, a staff report would be good to come up with that. A way to maybe subsidize maybe a pilot program. Let's say we look at applications and take 20 applications or 50, depending on what we get, and put a budget line in and say, okay, Starlink, for example, for a business the equipment would be $700. So we'll subsidize $350 or $400 just to help these businesses. I mean, that tax base is big. And if we want to attract businesses to North Dumfries, especially if we get more employment lands, that might be a very, very intriguing aspect for them, that if we set them up with reliable, responsible internet. So I'm just wondering if there's something we could come up with to support our businesses with this internet issue that they're having.
Before I turn it over to you, CEO McNeely, Councillor Austin, there's a program the government funds that says if the municipality can link up with a provider, that there will be funding for that internet for it. But
no lines, there's no lines to most of these businesses. They need satellite.
Yeah, I know. Well, not yet. And that's part of it. And that's why there's a ton of money set aside for this stuff. But they're looking at us taking the initiative on working with some type of provider who's willing to do it as well. CEO McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor Ossner. Your question about the business parks is very timely. Staff have been working on a report. We have relied heavily on some information that was done by the town of Caledon, where they actually, I'm going to use the word, rather than subsidized, I'm going to say incentivized internet service providers to bring fiber to the address in some of their employment business parks. Council did set aside some capital monies approximately 18 months ago. And this report that staff is preparing is going to be talking about some programs where council may want to incentivize ISP entities to partner with us to do a build of fiber to the address. I also want to bring council current on the Universal Broadband Fund, which was a partnership with Bell Canada, dealing with an application that straddled the North Dumfries Hamilton boundary, and what that may mean in terms of internet services for portions of Ward 4 outside of the SWIFT award. And then the last component, I was going to be speaking to council about an element for future budgets as it relates to special items in the property tax line to raise monies to create some sustainability going forward to deal with some specific internet delivery projects, whether it be in the urban area, business parks, or the rural countryside. So that report is scheduled for October the 12th.
Excellent, CEO McNeely. But I like the idea of the pilot project on Melior Drive, only because the main fiber line comes in along Northumberland, does it not, from Rogers? And it shouldn't be a huge deal to leap over to Melior Drive. But again, I will leave that in your capable hands to look into.
Yeah, so right now, the existing fiber line terminates at generally the intersection of Guthrie, Northumberland, as well as at the address to 2958 Greenfield Road, servicing the NDCC. So it's at the edges of the Melior Business Park area. And we have the same issue at 97401. Some landowners up there have under their own funds developed portions of a fiber to the address, but it's not consistent throughout the 97401 Business Park. And when businesses approach a service provider, they're finding the cost to be staggering in terms of the upfront cost that's being asked by these internet service providers to install fiber. So this is a way of trying to accelerate those opportunities through financial incentives to the ISPs, hopefully then creating a more favorable business plan or business climate to install the fiber to the address.
Councillor Ossner.
Well, that's good news. I'm hoping hand in hand with that, we can combine like a satellite service, because, for example, we're not going to subsidize one line that runs all the way to Encon or or one line that runs all the way to Unilock. That's a long way. That's a long way from where it is. Whereas those isolated units, those isolated companies that, we say to them, okay, well, we can work on this, but it's going to take 5 years. Well, that's a lot of tax base we could lose if the company decides to leave because we just can't service them properly that provide the services for the tax base. So I'm just wondering in conjunction with that, and that's great news, CO McNeely, I'm just wondering in conjunction with that, if there is a pilot program for businesses that are not within the reach, like Mel-Air is different because you have all those businesses together, that's bang for our buck. But when you have the one-offs that are isolated, I would like to see a program to involve them as well, because if a Starlink or even Bell's satellite Starlink equipment's like $600 or something like that, even if we help them get it out there to hold them over until it is financially feasible for us to run a line. I mean, it's not a huge commitment for certain companies. But I also think for our business tax base, it's a positive gesture from the township to help these companies with a problem that they repeatedly bring forward to us.
Thank you,
So-
Councillor Ossner. I'm sure CO McNeely will include that.
Okay.
Any other comments on regards to this? Seeing none, we can have Councillor Rowland come back, please. And Ms. Sage, the next thing we'll do is the first and second reading of the bylaws. Probably went to get a drink or something to go to the washroom. Oh, there he is. Almost there.
There you go, I'm back.
Welcome back, Councillor Rowland. So if we can have first and second reading of the bylaw, please, Ms. Sage.
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor McCreary that the following bylaws be taken as read a first and second time. Bylaw number 3275-21 being a bylaw to appoint and confirm the appointment of the auditors, BDO Canada LLP for the Township of North Dumfries. Bylaw number 3276-21 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a development agreement for 2 Hall Street. Councillor Roman,
In favor?
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes,
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. Can I have third reading of the bylaws, please?
So moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor Ossner that the following bylaws be taken as read a third time and finally passed. Bylaw number 3275-21 being a bylaw to appoint and confirm the appointment of the auditors, BDO Canada LLP for the Township of North Dumfries. And bylaw number 3276-21 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a development agreement for 2 Hall Street. Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
yes,
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
and we have the confirming the proceeding of council, please, the confirmatory bylaw.
Moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Ossner that bylaw number 3278-21 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on September 27th, 2021 be read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, signed, and sealed by the mayor and clerk. Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
I thought you were shaking your head no.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Counselor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
and the adjournment, please.
So moved by Counselor Gillespie and seconded by Counselor Roman that whereas business before this regular council meeting has been completed at 9:13 p.m. And be it resolved that this meeting adjourns and meets again on September 28th, 2021 at 7 p.m. for a public planning meeting. Counselor Roman,
Yes.
Counselor Rossner,
Yes.
Counselor McCreary,
Yes.
Counselor Gillespie,
Yes.
and Mayor Foxton.
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. And are there any comments from council that council would like to make? I think we've talked a lot tonight. Has the press got any questions or comments?
So we do have a member of the member of the press registered. So we're just going to stop the live